Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyeh b'dvaroi. Amen. Okay, good morning, Kehal Yedidim. Welcome. Such a great privilege to jump back in on this Thursday morning to our journey through Likutei Moharan Amud. Very excited that we launched yesterday the Chaim Yishak project to transcribe the shiurim. The second one will be coming out today, and I think it's great. It's great. I think it's really a great opportunity to print them out on our own, or you can wait until the contrasts come out, which is going to be, let's say, the introduction. It'll be 5 shiurim put together and then printed for the shuls, or you can wait until the first volume comes out, which is going to take some time. It'll probably be 10 to 15 or 20 Torahs. But just the opportunity to go back and to review much more quickly, because you can read faster than you can, it takes for me to speak. And to highlight and to underline and to see things visually, I think could be very helpful. It was for me, at least, and it continues to be as I'm going through them and editing. So Be'ezus Hashem, it's something special and a big privilege and a great opportunity. So today's shiur is sponsored by a dear friend of mine, Shlomo Rosenblatt, as a zechus for Besuras Tevis for Taya Malka Bas Naami. That's very, very appreciated. We should hear Besuras Tevis. Also sponsored by a listener of the shiur who built NØRA, a clinically grounded app for shemirat habris. Highly recommended. Special Shovavim pricing is less than $1 a week, and a link is included when the shiur is posted. Also by Zev Klein, nishmas, his parents, Rivka Bryndel, Bas Tzvi Simcha and Ya'akov ben Yishachyau. Also dedicated as a zechus refuah sheleimah for Chaim Yehoshua and Chaim Miriam, as well as for Chaim Avrohom Ben Rochel. We should only hear Besuras Tevis all around in the zechus of our learning this morning, Be'ezus Hashem. So we have a very special privilege today of beginning Torah Lamed Ches. It's a privilege to start every Torah, but Lamed Ches, unlike some of the others we've been learning, is quite a bit longer. It's going to take us a while. It'll take us most, if not all, of next week, and I'm going to speak about that in a minute, because it's extremely, it's one of the major lessons. Even though in Breslov, I'm not sure if people take such notice of Lamed Ches. It's not like Vav, it's not like Yud, it's not like a land Chaf Beis, it's not a land Chaf Hey, it's not like a landmark Torah, but it is. It really is. It's just extremely dense, compressed, but it's unbelievable, and it's a huge continuation in our derech of learning, where we're trying to see the whole thing as a collaborative, cumulative structure, like an algorithm of the past few Torahs, particularly Lamed Vav, Lamed Hey, Lamed Vav, and Lamed Zayin. And it's also, we're standing at the sort of the precipice of a new section of Likutei Moharan. If you turn 2 pages, you'll see we're going to get into much smaller Torahs now, right? From Lamed Tes, in a way that we haven't seen throughout the whole Sefer, all the way through, relatively, right? Until you get to Mem Zayin. And then Mem Tes is very long, but then Nun is quite short, and then an Aleph. So over here, we're starting to get into a slightly different section of Likutei Moharan, where the Torahs get quite a bit shorter, and we're going to feel a little bit more pace picking up as we carry on. So we begin Torah Lamed Ches, which, like I just told you, we're going to spend most of next week on, and it's just quite fascinating. And again, Kadosh Baruch Hu is smiling at us. When do you think Rabbi Nachman said this Torah? During the year. This Torah was said Erev Shabbos Shira, 1801, and here we are. Well over a few hundred years later, we're going to be saying, I'm learning this Torah, the same thing, Erev Shabbos Shira. So I thought that was just remarkable, that here we are, the same time of year, learning the Torah that's obviously speaking to the energies that we're experiencing. So let's jump in. This is Lashon Rabbeinu Zichrono Livracha. We're going to see that it's quite compressed, and let's make a go at it. Be'ezus Hashem. But it's a very, very beautiful, very powerful Torah. Excuse me. So the Rebbe says like this: This Torah is going to be speaking about the pasuk Markavos Parah B'chei Yarbayam, obviously apropos to Shabbos Shira, Parshas B'Shalach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu led the chariots, or really cast the chariots of Parah and his army into the Yam, and destroyed the Egyptian army Right? We're going to come back to that pasuk toward the end of the Torah. Says the Amen. Aleph. Ki tzarech kol adam lefashfesh es atzmai b'chol eis im hu davok b'Hashem yisbarach. A person has to check in with themselves all the time. Am I connected to Hashem? Am I davok to Hashem? V'asimin shal Deveikus hu Tefillin. The simin of Deveikus, the symbol for our Deveikus, is Tefillin. Ki Tefillin him simin ala Deveikus. Attachment to Tefillin, being bound by Tefillin, is a simin, is going to be an indicator, and at the very least, a symbolic representation of what Deveikus is. Okay, so this needs a bit of unpacking. Let's do that quite quickly. What does it mean, davok b'Hashem yisbarach? We're going to learn, as we learned in Torah Tess, that a balatame poischin loy, right? A person who comes to become impure, they open all the doors for him. And a person can be stuck in the darkness to such an extent that they can't find a way out. And we learned over there, how does a person get out? They need light, because they need to find the doorway. Right? A balatame poischin loy. But sometimes a person feels like they're stuck and there's no doors. Said the Rebbe over there, Hashem is R. When a person can discover a dibur emes within themselves, to find something authentic to say, to become conscious of their true selves, and come panim b'panim with their own essence, which we're going to speak a lot about. In that moment, a person's connected to Hashem. Hashem is emes, Hashem is R. And in that minute, there's a light. That light illuminates a person's life. It shows the person there are doors. I got in here somehow. I can leave. Deveikus is authenticity. Davok b'Hashem yisbarach. Am I connected to something real? Am I connected to truth? Truth is the chosem of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Have to be connected to truth. Persons deluding themselves or others, they're not connected to Hashem. So Deveikus will not always look the way that we sometimes read about it in the Sfarim, where we think it means ecstatic, spiritual rapture. Lav dafka. Can look like that. Hopefully will look like that, at least periodically, if not often. But that's not Deveikus. Deveikus means, am I connected to the authenticity of the realization that I am on this planet to build a conscious connection to my source, right? Deveikus means relationship with all of what a relationship has. It's the good, the bad, the ugly, but it's real. So just from the outset, I think it's important to clarify this, right? Deveikus means relationship. It doesn't have to look the way that it's colloquially used, right? He was in such Deveikus. What do they mean when they say that? They don't mean that he was in a horrible mood, out in his spodidus in the rainy Hendon Park over here, yelling at Hashem. That's not usually what people mean when they describe Deveikus, right? They mean like a Hasidic Rebbe who's his eyes rolling back in his head and his just sparks shooting out of his gartel. I don't know, That's usually what they mean when they say Deveikus. Over here, we're taking a different approach. Deveikus just means, am I connected, right? And that's what Tefillin are. This is brought by many Sfarim. Most prominently, I think the Kedushas Levi, because it really fits into his whole energy, right, as the Sanigora and Shal Yisrael. So the B'ditcher has a very famous teaching in Parshas, I want to say Parshas Bai, I believe it's in Parshas Bai, I have it written down here. Yeah, Parshas Bai. And the B'ditcher writes a very famous teaching, short teaching. Same teaching is echoed by the Nefesh HaChaim, believe it or not, who says something very similar, as well as, I just said yesterday, the Marsha brings something also very similar. But the Berditchever is like the Mara de Shmeitz of this idea, where the Berditchever wants to know, why is it that we refer to Pesach as Pesach, but throughout the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu refers to it as Chag HaMatzos. Says the Berditchever, because we and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are in a relationship. We're looking at each other all the time. We call it we call it Pesach Because we want to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? We're facing Hashem. We're not facing ourselves, looking at ourselves in the mirror. We're referring to the great deed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did, which was he was Pasach Alabatim. Hashem is looking at us. See, he wants to refer to it by the great deed that we did, which is that we went, right? We went out with emunah. We didn't even have time to bake the bread. We didn't know how we're going to eat. We went out with dough. We didn't even take provisions for ourselves. Amazing act of emunah. Hashem calls it Chag HaMatzos. Says the B'ditcher, this is Tefillin. We wear Tefillin and Hashem wears Tefillin. In our Tefillin, it says the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It speaks about Yitzis Mitzrayim, right? It speaks about all of it. Shema, Vayikav, right? It speaks about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring us to. What does it say in Hashem's Tefillin? Tefillin Demar Alma Maksiv Bey Mikam Yisrael. Right? Tefillin is a siman of Deveikus. This is the Berditcher's Torah. Nefesh HaChaim says the same thing. And the Marsha says the same thing. And really what we mean to say is that Tefillin is the siman of our Deveikus with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? Tefillin, literally what it means, Al Pi Pshat. Right? What is it? What is Tefillin? What does the word mean? It means to bind, right? Just like Tefillin, of Tu Lilikim Neftalti. Means to become bound up. That's what we do. We bind HaKadosh Baruch Hu onto our arms. We spoke about Tetafos, right? But I bind the Tefillin Shal Rosh to my head, to my mind. Can I get the lave? Can I get the mind? Tie it around my finger. Tefillin means I'm bound up with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But again, like in any authentic relationship, it doesn't always go perfectly smooth. It's not supposed to. Any good psychologist will tell you, we spoke about that once in this context, that any healthy relationship has to have periods of rupture, right? Breaking down and then repair. That's the code of the world, relationally speaking, this is the way that it is. Right? There's a coming apart, and then there's coming back together, and there's all these different ups and downs in the relationship. What's the main thing? Am I davuk Hashem? Right? Am I living whatever I'm living, whatever circumstance I'm living, whatever I'm going through? Am I seeing it through the lens of my connection to my source, which is the essence of life, which is the ultimate purpose for which I came down into this world on a personal level? Tefillin. Right? We're going to use Tefillin now as the symbol for this Deveikus and the experience of climbing out, as we're going to see, of a lower lishaynus that we use and climbing into Deveikus. So much more on that to come. Ki Tefillin name siman al Deveikus. So I need to know, what's my relationship with Tefillin? Some people have a very fraught relationship with Tefillin. Right? Again, speaking authentically. So some people just never think of it, and they put on Tefillin every day and they say, no. For some people, Tefillin is hard for them. So, a person, right, and we're going to speak more about this also, a person who falls below sort of the communal structure where certain things are just expected of them and they do it, which there's a tremendous beauty to, obviously. A person can, Avram Zakin Babayamim, to come with all of the days of Tefillin and tzitzis and so on. The Rebbe is really speaking about authenticity. It means, imagine a person who has no communal expectation of al tshuva, right? A person who joined much later in life. They don't have that sense of hergel. Everything that they do is something they chose to do. You could imagine such a thing. That one day they wake up, they're just not feeling tefillin. I know that's sacrilegious to say, but they're not feeling tefillin. But from the standpoint of the relationship, it might be a very authentic expression for them to struggle, right? Now again, we hope that they'll put tefillin on. But tefillin is a siman of Deveikus. So if I'm not feeling connected, it's going to be hard. I'm not saying the person is not mechuyev. I'm just bringing out this nekuda where it's a visceral expression of binding. If a person is angry at Hashem, and tefillin actually means what tefillin ought to mean, it shouldn't be so simple to wrap tefillin. Understand? Because tefillin means, hold on a second, if I'm being authentic, right, I'm about to tie this around my arm, do I feel that engagement ring? Could imagine such a thing. Hashem Yishmarv. Person's going through Shalom Bayis challenges, and the wife she can't put on her wedding ring one morning because she's just feeling so estranged and so It's just, it's the relationship with that whole inyan is because tefillin, on the level of authenticity, again, most of us don't think about what tefillin. I mean, we never thought about tefillin in our life. It's going to be, from your bar mitzvah, you put on tefillin. But if we start to think, I was going to add another word there, but just, if we start to think, not even more broadly, if we just start to think, right, which is already a big madriga. Wow, tefillin. Siman al Deveikus. Okay. Says the Heilige Rebbe, tefillin. A person can only rise into the aspect of tefillin only by fixing up dibur. This whole Torah is a pella because he's going to connect things. It's a wild ride, this Torah, to hold on tight. By elevating dibur and rectifying it, makesher. And also, what a strange thing, right? I put on tefillin every morning. What do you mean? It's impossible to lavoi lebechinas tefillin. So the Rebbe, obviously, tefillin is much more than simply, actually putting tefillin on, because a person could put on tefillin, and it's possible that they have not actually come lebechinas tefillin, because the Rebbe wants us to be doing things authentically, right? He doesn't want us to be doing things mitzvahs anashim ulumada. Right? Chassidus came to bring back the neshama, the kavana, the mindfulness, the intentionality. It should be real. It shouldn't be societal, right? So says the Rebbe, a person's putting on tefillin every day. But a person can only love lebechinas tefillin, to rise into the true, authentic Deveikus relationship with Hashem. It's only when a person is mala their dibur and rectifies it. What's going on here? Says the Rebbe, ki adibur shu ruach piv shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu shu bechinas malchus peh. Dibur, which is the breath, the speech of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, channeling down, like we've learned, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's energy from the most unlimited, undefined realm, which is the Bechina of Chachma, right, that original holistic thought, down into Bina, more particularized thought, then into the physical level of Kol, like we say, and then channeled into Dibur, right, so it's an externalizing, constricting, limiting experience. Shu bechinas malchus peh, that ultimately emerges in the bechina of malchus peh, which is the final sphera that renders reality as we have it today. Hu bechinas yam, it's an aspect al pi Kabbalah of an ocean. Shekol hanachalim halchim l'seichai, right? Why is malchus called yam? Right, Bina is also called yam, right? It's 50 gates of Bina. Why is malchus called yam? Because the pasuk says in Koheles, kol hanachalim halchem elayam. All of the nachalim, all of the streams flow toward the yam, and that's what malchus is, right? Malchus is the kli, all of the different energies of the spheres, right? All the way down from the moichin down into the midas, chesed, gvur, tiferes, netzach, chodesh, malchus, all the way down to the channels, are flowing into yam. Okay, so what's yam is malchus. What shame is associated with malchus? Good, also, which we're going to get to in a minute. What other shame is associated with malchus? A little bit less common. Elikim. Because the pasuk says, Elikim malki mikeda. Elikim is really three. Elikim is Bina, Elikim is Gevura, and Elikim is Malchus. These three are very connected, obviously. It's the bechinas of Din, Dina de Malchusa Dina. A fascinating thing. We're saying, look at the pasuk, right? Kol hanachalim halchim el hayam. At the words el hayam is Elokim. El hayam. Amazing. El hayam is malki mikadem. Elokim malki mikadem. Okay, so that's true, right? Malchus is the bechin of Elokim, malki mikadem, Malchus, and it's the yam. V'hu bechinas adni. And like Rabbi Jeremy just said, it's also the bechina of adni. Kamashakasav adni sefasai tiftach. Malchus is peh. So we find the shem adni in the context of sefasai tiftach, opening our mouths, and that's dibur. And everybody has that capacity, hopefully, right, to speak. And we could all speak. But what are we speaking? What are we speaking? Reb Tzadok writes in Sigas Tzadok, if you want to know really what a person is, listen to what they say. Take the sum total stock of what they speak about. Even subconsciously. can emerge the nefesh. And I believe there it brings the pasuk we just had in a different context in Torah Lamed Zayin. Nafshi yatsa b'dabrei. When a person is medaber, then the nefesh, which is like even the lowest, most like sort of unconscious part of them, nafshi yatsa b'dabrei. And this is generally true. I think it's generally true, right? A person speaks about what they care about. Listen to what people speak about. Listen to what yourself and what ourselves speak about. Right? Start checking in with oneself. What are most of my conversations like during the day? You know, what am I? Because dibur is the most elemental form of self-expression. I have thoughts, want to reveal them, I want to express them. Person goes around the whole world and all they do is act and never speak. Even the person that knows them best doesn't know them so well. All right, imagine that, or mute. There's some part of themselves, some fundamental part, essential part of themselves that's locked away. Because dibur is so fundamental. And the way that we come to know a person is through conversations, through dibur. Says the Rebbe, ukeshepoig min hadibur. When a person blemishes their diburim, which we're going to learn about in a minute, shehu adni, which, like we just established, is the shem adnus, azai al yedei hapagam nase miruach piv, ruach se'arah. Instead of ruach piv, which is a creative act, just like it was by Kadosh Baruch Hu, that right, we said earlier, shehu ruach piv shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the ruach piv called tziva'am. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu uses his ruach piv, it creates hosts, it creates worlds, it creates. Instead of that, we have dibur, that is ruach se'arah. Right, so if ruach piv is going to be constructive, obviously ruach se'arah is going to be destructive, right? A destructive dibur. Ruach se'arah. How does the Rebbe get that? First he's going to say al derech remez or side. Then we're going to explain it outside. Says the Rebbe, ki chav zayin oisiyos, because if dibur is about chav zayin oisiyos, which are the 22 letters of the Aleph Beis and the 5 letters mansepach, which we learned about yesterday, it's going to be very connected. The Hey Gvurais. And kol echad kalol mi'asara. And each one of them is times 10 because there are 10 nekudos, and so there are 10 different variations of each letter. Right, so each letter is times 10 is gematria ra. That together gives you 270, right? 27 times 10 gives a person 270. Chav zayin can become ra. V'nase mebechinas hadibor, hainu mebechinas adni, can become ra oisiyos, which ends up being the word se'arah, because samche is adni and reish ayin is ra. And that's Ruach Se'arah. The Adni became Ra. Person's dibur is destructive. We're going to learn what kind of destructive dibur in a minute. Destructive dibur. This is an amazing Torah, this Torah. Overlooked. Really overlooked. Torah Lamed Ches is overlooked. The Zebechinas, the Pasuk Tehillim says, Ruach Se'arah oisa devarai. A person can do this terrible thing of turning divarai, which should be productive speech, into ruach se'arah. Sha'oisim umesaknen es hadibur. I'm sorry, the opposite. Ruach se'arah oisa divar. Our job is to elevate the dibur. Oisa divarai, right, is to turn constructive dibur. Is to allow constructive dibur to emerge out of Ruach Se'arah. Sha'oisim umesaknim es hadibur u'malan oisai bebechinas Ruach Se'arah. To elevate the dibur into a state of Ruach Piv that emerges out of Ruach Se'arah. So what does Ruach Se'arah mean? Says the Rebbe of Ruach Se'arah hazeh. This is referred to in the Zohar Kodesh as hu mekatrig hagadol. When the Zohar Kodesh refers to the spiritual energies that come to be mekatrig against a person, and we learned about that yesterday, the Satan that wants to be mekatrig against the Nefesh Yikara, that's supposed to come down into the world, he's mekatrig against, the Zohar calls it Ruach Se'arah. It's a destructive force. Because again, Ruach can mean a wind, air, but it could also mean a spirit. Ruach Se'arah. It's a spirit of destruction.
don't understand if the osios and the vowels are certainly at least neutral or have a lot of potential in them.
Yeah.
And Adni adds up to 65, which is the Samachay.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Se'arah bad? Where is the...
Because the word Ra is bad.
Okay, Ra. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
so Ra is 27, right?
Okay.
Times 10. So that's 270, which is Ra.
Okay.
So it's Samachay Ra. It took Adni, which is neutral, and it used it for Ra. That's Ruach Se'arah. Alright, so Samachay Adni together with Reish Ayin. Yeah?
The fact that the 22 letters
Mm-hmm.
times the 10 vowels spells Ra, what does that mean?
It means that it has the
Speech
capacity. It has the capacity. Right? That's what it's showing you, right? It can also mean error, I guess, right? Which means to wake up. The Cyrus, like meaning it's a word, it's a remez, right? And the remez is to tell you there is the capacity within the 27 to become Ra.
Okay.
That's okay. Says the Heilige Rebbe in the Zohar Kadosh, the Mekatrek HaGadol is called Ruach Se'arah Shemimenu Ba'im Kol HaKitrugim HaNisyonos. All of the Kitrugim and the Nisyonos are coming as a result of the Mekatrek HaGadol. Kitrugim and Nisyonos. Listen to that carefully. Kitrug means an accusation. Nisyonos means challenges. But don't you notice something? It's out of order. What should it say? Nisyonos or kitrugim. What's a kitrug? A kitrug means somebody did something wrong and then you're mekatrug. It means because you have some. Kitrug means that there's something to accuse a person about. Nisayon doesn't mean. Nisayon just means a test. This is very, 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 very miduyak. Lashon Rabbeinu. So nothing's out of order. This almost seems to imply or give rise to the concept of the Gemara in, I believe it's Gemara in Bava Basra, I think, which says, Hu ha-satan, hu ha-malach hu ha-yetzahara, hu ha-yetzahara, hu ha-satan, hu ha-malach ha-mavis. He is all of these three things. It's the same fellow. It's the same guy. It's like, puts on different hats. Right? He is the yetzahara. Then it becomes the Satan, and then it becomes the Malach HaMavis. I can't remember exactly the order, but it's the same kind of idea. This is Ruach Se'arah. He's the one who gives the Nisayan. He's the one who's Mekatri. But you know what it is? And this is going to be very, very key to what we're learning now. He's Mekatri before the Nisayan. In other words, the great strategy is to say, going to give you a Nisayan, but before I give you the Nisayan, I'm already going to be Mekatrik. Right? I'm going to already make it clear to you that you know the Nisayan is looming, and you also know that there is nothing you can do about it. There's no chance. There's no chance. But you still have a chance because you haven't done it yet. There's still free choice. The Mekatrik makes it clear to a person, you are weak. You cannot do this.
He's betting on us, but he's already...
He's the opposite. He's betting exactly. He's betting that we'll fail.
He's giving us loaded dice.
Yes, he's betting that we'll fail, and he is letting us know that he's betting that we'll fail. Right, which greatly increases the odds of us failing. He's mekatrig, and he gives nisyanis. V'hu, listen carefully to these words, unbelievable. V'hu achar HaDevarim. This is what's referred to in the Zohar Kadosh as Achar HaDevarim ha'ela. The Ruach Se'arah is connected to the concept of Achar HaDevarim. Now, al pi pshat, because we're going to learn in a minute, it comes from a pasuk in Vayera, which says, Vayhi Achar HaDevarim v'alikim nisa es Avraham, and that's referring to the Akedah, right? So it means Achar HaDevarim ha'ela, it means just, behold, and it was after these events, right? But based on what we're learning over here and the connection to Dibor, Devarim is precise, right? Achar HaDevarim. Devarim is the words. It means a way of talking about oneself. Achar HaDevarim is what kind of letters? What do you say? Achar HaDevarim is Mansapach. right? Those are the Hey Gevuras, right? Those are the 5 letters which come at the end of the word. We spoke about it very much yesterday, which means the energy of din, right? We said, why is it din? Because it's the end. It's the end. It says you cannot progress. There's no hope. The door's closed. That's why we cannot get Ra from the Aleph Beis, right, in that remez, unless you include the Mansepach. Because it's all of the Aleph Beis running up against Mansepach, right? V'hu Achar HaDevarim, shehu yoinek me'adibor. And where does it get its energy from? From the way that we talk. Kishemoitze Pesach linoik. When a person opens up a Pesach, linoik, the Satan, the Achar HaDevarim, the Ruach Se'arah is right there to be yoinik on it. Hainu le Pesach chatas roivets. The minute that you Pesach Pesach piv, he's already there to be yoinik from that. Uksiv shmor pischei picha. Be careful. Be careful when you speak, because the Satan is going to be there. The Satan wants to be yoinik from the diburim. The Satan wants to impact the way that we talk, to turn our dibur, which is supposed to be ruach piv, into a dibur of ruach se'arah. But it's more than just the Pesach of opening our mouths to say something. It means anytime you try to open a new door. Because the opposite of Achar HaDevar. Achar HaDevar means all the doors are closed. There's nowhere else to go. It's too late. Shmar pischei picha means you can make a new beginning, but careful. Because the minute that you try to open a new door, le Pesach chatas roivitz. Right there, you're going to bump into the Achar HaDevar. You're going to bump into the Ruach Se'arah, who comes to tell you, oh, what are you just starting something new? Achar HaDevarim. He's mekatrig, and then he gives the nisayon. There's no hope. What do you want? What are you trying to? There's nowhere to go. Shmar pischei picha. You can start new all the time. Right away, you're going to bump into the Ruach Se'arah. The Ruach Se'arah doesn't allow us to imagine. The Ruach Se'arah comes to destroy, comes to tear down. It's the Bechin of Amalek. Spoke about Amalek, I'm sure. This one I can't really remember what we spoke about or didn't speak about, but I'm sure we spoke about Amalek. Asher karcha baderech. That's this energy. Baderech means I have a derech. I can get somewhere. I started point A. There's a point B. There's a Sinai. I'm on my way to revelation. Comes Amalek Asher karcha baderech. Everything's the kriris, that cold blast of air, and that sometimes we quite enjoy in the beginning of shiur, you know. But it can also come to freeze our journey. Asher karcha baderech. And then it comes and it tells us, oh, there's no hope. You're weak, you're straggling. Come on, what are you? A bunch of rabble, like a rabble coming out of Egypt, it's a bunch of slaves.
Isn't that how it always is with everything that we ever do? We start coming to shiur and somebody says to you, can you really get up at... Mamish. Always. Yeah. Always. But that's still the nisayon part. And you say it to yourself as well.
So when somebody else says it, it's still the nisayon part. Yeah. When you start to believe it, that's the kitrug part. The kitrug part is the key, because nisyonis we could deal with. The reason we can't deal with nisyonis is because we don't believe we can deal with nisyonis. This goes back to what I said in previous shiurim, going back to shiur na'im about the ruach shtus that HaKadosh Baruch Hu causes the Yetzer Hara to bring into us, which went back, like we learned about the Pil HaGadol, right, the great elephant, right, who doesn't just stamp on the mouse that's driving him crazy, running between his feet and tugging on his nose. It doesn't stamp him out. Why? B'chol zeh machmas shtus, Rabbi Nachman said, she'eino yodea mikoicha. Doesn't know how great he is. The kitrug is that I think I'm weak. Memela, I'm weak. He's mekatrig, and then he gives a nisayon. The MS I could deal with the nisayon, but not if I'm already in a moichin of Ruach Se'arah, of Achar HaDevarim Me'ela, and not only is somebody else saying that to me, I'm saying that to myself. I can't. If you say you can't, then you can't. Shmor pischei picha. Like it says in Zohar Kodesh, Vayihi Achar HaDevarim, and it was after these Devarim, V'alikim nishmas Avram. And what's the shame that's used? Likim. Likim is Malchus, right? It could go one way or another, like we learned. El Hayam. El Hayam. Kol Anachalim Halchim El Hayam. El Hayam, right? El Hayam, these 5 letters, Elokim is Mansapach. Right? They are connected, the 5 end the letters, right? The closing letters. Vuhu Misa'er Gufa de Barnash. They are what inflame the body of a Barnash. Is this kind of thinking, this kind of speaking about ourselves. Barnash is a human being. It's Aramaic. Now listen to this. Now when it comes to us speaking about others, Ruach Se'arah, any Lashon Hara, Malshinos comes on account of this Ruach Se'arah, me Achar HaDevarim hazeh. Comes from this aspect of Achar HaDevarim. It's too late, right? Achar HaDevarim. It's beyond. There's no hope. Ki bechinas kates kol basar. It's the bechina of kates kol basar balafanai. It's the end. It's the bechina of the mabel. Kates kol basar. There's no hope. Sha'isa kates v'saif l'chol basar. And this energy of the mabel is going to become important because we're going to come back to it. And listen to what he says here. Ubnei Adam shehim danim es kol Adam l'kav chayva. Human beings who have a tendency to judge the whole world unfavorably and to find only problems. The chaykrim tamid al chayvus bnei Adam, and always choose to see what people are doing wrong as opposed to what people are doing right. Hey mi bechinas kates kol basar. They're rooted in that energy of kates kol basar, and there's an incredibly deep truth here because usually, if a person is in that energy, it really means that if they're saying that about other people, they're probably saying that about themselves too. People are very critical of other people. You usually don't find that a person is not critical about everybody else. Now, to be critical of oneself could be a positive thing, right? If it's a healthy thing. Every person needs to really be self-aware and to know what they need to fix and so on and so forth. But a catastrophizing sense of finality with regard to what a person is capable or incapable of, this that a person comes out into the world and says, like David HaMelech says, and he castigates himself for this. Ani amarti b'chavzi kala adam koize. We call that pagama klali. We're speaking about taking a habris, which we're going to get to as well. Right? Remember? Pagama klali. That was Aiden's big hara. Pagama klali is the hepech of tikna klali. Pagama klali, that's Amalek, right? And a person says that about themselves. That's the way that a person sees themselves. I have no hope. Memela, they project that onto everybody else and everything else. They're seeing things through a tunnel vision, myopic. There's a myopic way of looking at reality where we ignore all the positive things that are happening, right? And the same is true inward. But those kinds of people are in the energy of Kate's Kolbas, or Kamasha Kasu, Kate's Samla Choshech, Olachol Tachlis Hu Chayker. Right? Kate's Samla Choshech. The darkness is, it means Hashem put an end to darkness, which is an immensely positive and optimistic saying, right? The Medrash uses this pasuk to refer to Yosef Atzadik getting out of jail in the parashas Mikates, right? Mikates. There's a kates to darkness. That's a beautiful thing. But the Rebbe also says that there is a concept of darkness that's associated with kates. There's a certain darkness around ends, right? Or there's a certain concept of end that's associated with darkness. The Rebbe is interpreting the pasuk in a sort of a negative way. Right? The person is chayker, trying to find a way to shut everything down. He's chayker to put a tachlis to everything. To say this project is not going to work, veto it. This idea is a silly idea, forget it. This is naive, never going to happen. There's no hope. A person comes into a certain consciousness, this is just the way the world is, nothing can change. Now again, a person's hope needs to be checked by reality as well. When all of us go through this process, I think growing up, every kid is going to change the whole world. Then it's like the famous Musar thing, then I realized I could change my city, I could change my street. Never really liked that because that itself is quite, it's a little bit too limiting, and I think there's a negative energy in that. And I'm not so sure that that's true. Vaharaya, there were people who changed their street and so that there's like an addendum that they add. You know what I'm referring to, right? So there's an addendum that they add to the end of that. Once I change myself, then I change my street, and I argue that the two could be concurrent, but at least we should try. A person should try. I think part of Tikkun Atzmi is also, looking out for others and thinking about the world. But a person's hope also takes shape, and they start to realize, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to change everything. I'm supposed to change what I'm supposed to change. Okay, so then I'm not carrying the whole burden of the whole world, even though Rabbi Nachman asks us to do that, in a sense, in Torah Daled, like we learned, there has to be that kind of consciousness, but it has to come into frameworks, right? But there's always a vision. What am I doing now to make the world a little bit better? What's my next strategy? It was okay, this failed. Cool, that's fine. But we have this Kate's called Basar mentality to say that if this failed, I'm done. This is the last straw. Rabbi Nachman comes to the world to tell us Ein Shum Yish B'Adam Klal, because the tzaddik emes, if Amalek is the archetype of our arch enemy, right? The concept of the bechina of Reishis Goyim Amalek, the tzaddik has to battle that. That's why the Rebbe's all, people think like they take it in a very like simplistic way. It's like, oh, that's what he said. Okay, we'll never give up hope. It's so endlessly deep. It's so endlessly, the sugya of hope, of tikva, of not is endlessly deep. It's mamish coming to counterbalance and counteract the bechin of Amalek. And the Rebbe is saying there's no such thing. There's no last straw. There's no last open door. There's no hope. What's the next move? There's always the next move. In this game of chess, of life, there's no checkmate. What's the next move? You always have infinite moves. You have infinite moves if you still realize you have infinite moves. That's what we're learning. The minute that you start to say checkmate, then it's checkmate. Because then you're done. That's called Achar HaDevarim. That's called Ruach Se'arah. Your dibur became a ra. It bumps up into the 5 bechinas of mansapach, and there's nowhere to go. Says the Heilige Rebbe's Chus Yagan Aleinu, Shul Chayker Tamid Lasses Tachlis V'chilay and L'chal Davar V'la'ira Din V'la'halshin V'la'katrik. And that's how it is. A person takes the form of the mekatrig, of the malshin. That's why you always want to be encouraging of other people. You can advise other people if people come to you for advice. But at the end of the day, if you see that a person is trying to do something, you're going to encourage it at the end of the day. Right? You might not like the idea of learning Likutei Moharan every single day, for example. Right? But if a person wants to do it, so they want to do it. So you're not going to tell them not to do it. Especially a davar shebekadusha. But when it comes to anything in the world, right? You have to check in with yourself, not to be the Kate's Kalbasser, Encourage. Don't discourage. Encourage. Encourage. Right? The Rishaim can be kayam nigrash. What's the yam? We already learned this malchus. There's no rest. In other words, they don't believe that it's possible to find menucha in this world. Right? And that's what we want. We want menucha. We want yishav hadas. Rashaim are kiyam nigrash. They're going to use their yam, which is dibor, which is kol anacholam holchem elayam Elohim, right? Elohim malki mikedem, 5 letters mansapach. They're going to use that and to basically say, ki hashket lo yuchal. You'll never find the peace you're looking for. Achar HaDevarim Then they give us an isayin. But only after, Achar HaDevarim, after they were writing Mekatrik, by sitting Lepesach Chatas Roivit. It says you're going to start something new, you're going to start a new project, you're going to download a new app called NØRA, right? Just to give a little push. It's about $1 a day, I'm saying, if it can help, And all of a sudden, something you're working on for years and decades, also, shemirat habris? Please. And then it gives you nisayon. It doesn't give you a chance. Kitrug before it gives you the nisayon. So we have to be very careful to check in with how we speak to ourselves. How do we speak to ourselves? Is our dibur a Ruach Se'arah, or can it be Ruach Piv? Can we give ourselves confidence? Can we give ourselves chizuk? Can we turn the viridin, going back to Torah Lamed Zayin, the riyudin, kavura din, into aleph din? Right? Can I elevate? Can I bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence into this? Can I find the Torah in this, as we're going to see, and as we learned? Right? This is just a culmination. We learned this in Lamed Vav, most specifically in Lamed Vav, about the challenges that we go through in discovering the Torah. Nefesh Yikara comes into the world amongst challenges. The end of Torah Lamed Zayin, and it's a continuation. Torah Lamed Ches. Can we find that strength? Just thinking of something, I forgot it now. 1 second. Gotta come back to me. Let's finish the paragraph and we'll finish for today. Our job, first and foremost, right? Again, we're trying to get to Tefillin. It's unbelievable. It's like Tefillin. We're trying to get to Tefillin. Right? Tefillin, which is like the most basic avodah that every Jewish male does. This 13 is like, no. There are much more basic avodas, right? We're trying to get to Tefillin is the ceiling, okay? How do we get to Tefillin? All of a sudden he's speaking about hope. He's speaking about not giving up. He's speaking about unbelievable. Yeah, because an authentic experience of Tefillin has to be conscious. There has to be some sense of self there, right? If a person's already in a bechin of kitrug, you can put on Tefillin all you want. It's not connecting. It's not Deveikus fortifying. So the first thing is, before we get to Tefillin, we have to check in with how we're talking to ourselves and about ourselves. There's a very big thing in the world now called affirmations, right? It's a real thing. Stand in front of the mirror in the morning and say good things to yourself. It sounds crazy. It sounds, but everything's crazy or everything's normal. It's a normal thing if it's meaningful to you, And it might sound silly and embarrassing. It has a real impact. And he's saying this is first line of defense, meaning before the nisayon is the kitrug. So I want to be Oymid Nisayon. Okay, we'll get to the Nisayonis. What's happening way before the Nisayon? How do you think about yourself? Where's the self-esteem? That comes long before Nisayonis. Our teenagers, our children are not struggling with Nisayonis. They're struggling with self-esteem. It comes way before the Nisayonis. And that's why the Rebbe always wants, because it's a razin, Pinimis wants to strip away the layers to ask again, Edgar will tell you again, what's really going on, right? Wants to know what's really going on. He wants to get to the core of things, not on the outside. So the first thing is, got to check in with ourselves. Like it says in the bracha to Yehuda, he ties his donkey to the vine, to the gefen, right, the grapevine. It says the Rebbe gefen da Knesset Yisrael gefen zois. Gefen is connected to Knesset Yisrael, which is the collective spirit of the Jewish nation, which is called zois, which is malchus. Kamashikaz of Zois Asher Diber, right? Zois is connected to Malchus. Zois is the feminine of Zeh. It's the bechin of Malchus. Ukishu kaifif is Ruach Se'arah. When a person subjugates that element of Ruach Se'arah inside, when he goes ahead and he captures back all of the diburim that were supposed to be positive, encouraging diburim, and he takes them back from the other side, which is in our capacity to do, depending on how we choose to speak about ourselves to ourselves. Az yakim sa'ara l'dmama. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes the Ruach Se'arah and he turns it into Dmama. Dmama connecting to Ki hashkit lo yuchal, right? The Rishon Ki Yam Nigrash doesn't want to give us any Dmama, any silence, any peace of mind, any menuchas nefesh. We have the capacity to quiet down our, what's called the monkey brain, right? We can do that. We can sit and we can quiet the mind. And we can say, I don't want to speak to myself that way. I don't want to hear those words. That's not a nice way to... I wouldn't speak that way to someone else, hopefully. Right? Sometimes we do. But I wouldn't want to say that to someone else. Why is it okay to say that to myself? A person should treat themselves at least as nicely as they treat others. Sometimes it's the opposite. We're very, very kind. I can speak for myself. I try to be. Not always successful. I try to be kind to everybody. And then the way sometimes that I speak to myself is completely not beseder. If I would ever hear myself speaking like that to someone else, I would shut it down immediately, right? So we have to think, we have that capacity. We have that capacity. Yakim Se'arah L'Dmama. We can elevate the destructive energy of Ruach Se'arah into Dmama. And then we can find Menuchas HaNefesh. We can find the Pesach. We can get out of the consciousness of Achar HaDevarim. Then, once we get the kitrug out of the way, we can deal with nisyonis with a little bit more confidence, a little bit more strength, a little bit more clarity. Then we might even be able to put on tefillin for real once in our life. Hashem should bless us. Ashreinu, Ashreinu. A great start. You can see already this is going to be a journey of a Torah. But what a privilege to learn this together.
It's really, you're talking about, you said at the beginning, it can either be in Ra or in air. So this is Shovavim, right? It's about waking up. So it's
one or another. Malchus, listen, we speak about Malchus to Kedusha or Malchus to Sitrachra.
שכל כך אוהב אותי האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני